Now that the update for Xiaomi's HyperOS 2 based on Android 15 is here for the Xiaomi 14 Ultra, I had to check out all the new features. But instead of just checking out HyperOS 2.0, I just wanted to see how it compares against OxygenOS 15 instead. And you guys know that with OxygenOS 15, OnePlus has made huge strides and it's actually a very good update, something that I didn't expect to say. Anyway, let's get right down to it. HyperOS 2.0, OxygenOS 15, my video. If you're here for the first time, I'm Ershad, you're watching Trakin English, your destination for detailed, incisive gadget reviews. Now, I know that all of you want to know about animations first, but before that, take a look at a handy timeline chart that we've made for you guys. You can see when OxygenOS 15 is coming to your OnePlus phone or HyperOS 2.0 is coming to your Xiaomi phone. Now, truth be told, animations are very well tuned on both HyperOS 2.0 and OxygenOS 15. Now, we have an animation test where we open and close 20 apps in quick succession, and you can see for yourself that both of these are faring really well. Now, both HyperOS and OxygenOS have split notifications, which means that you can swipe down from the left to open notifications and swipe down from the right to open quick settings. Now in HyperOS, if you swipe down from the right, the quick settings actually flows from the right side, and if you swipe down from the left, the animation again flows from the left. It definitely looks better than the bounce animation that's there on OxygenOS 15. Similarly, if you look at it, there are a lot of extra animations that is there in HyperOS. In fact, HyperOS has had these animations for a while now. So in first-party apps especially, when you close them or minimize them, they minimize into the app icon on the home screen. For example, you can see the settings right now, and when it closes into the settings app, it'll animate slightly. You can see that for yourself. These nice tiny little touches actually do enhance the user experience. Now you also get this wave animation with haptic feedback when you hold the home screen for customizing it and dropping any widget on it, and this looks very good. In fact, if you look at it, Xiaomi has done a very good job with the vibration feedback that you get on certain animations, and it is peppered throughout the system. OxygenOS 15 is also nice, but HyperOS is better. You also get multiple always-on display and lock screen transitions, just like Flux themes on OxygenOS. And animation-wise, both are very smooth, but I prefer them over Flux themes because everything here is customizable. I'll talk more about this theming and customizable bit a little later, but animations-wise, again, both look really nice. You get 6 different fingerprint animations on HyperOS 2.0 and 8 on OxygenOS 15. Now, visually, I like OxygenOS's animations, but you can prefer HyperOS if you want. Now, what I noticed while testing is that the animations themselves feel smoother and faster on OxygenOS 15, like I mentioned, but HyperOS does have more of these animations, making it a more fun experience of using the phone. Now, OxygenOS 15's design has a lot of pill-shaped, elements. There are a lot of rounded edges, just like One UI 7, and it's a design direction that I like because it looks very pleasing. Now, talking about home screen customization, there's one reason why OxygenOS 15 is slightly better, and that reason is the fact that you actually do get more icon packs with better looking icons. You can even hide app names if you want to and add third-party, icon packs from the Play Store itself, which is not possible on HyperOS 2.0. And now both these operating systems also do have the option for enlarged folders, which is something that I actually like. So basically, once you have an enlarged folder and if there's an icon inside, you can just tap on it and the app will directly open. But the one welcome change that I like in HyperOS 2.0 is that you have the toggle to switch off the recommended option, which is kind of nice, which is something that we wanted to happen with HyperOS 2.0. Now, with respect to widgets, HyperOS 2.0 has one new gallery widget, which lets you select like 12 photos, add a title to them, select a custom font and layout for the title, and it also lets you add a depth effect. Now, when you set it up, it does look very good. Now, one thing I noticed about HyperOS 2.0 is that the volume panel, when you expand it, it doesn't take up the entire screen like it happens in OxygenOS, which is actually a deft touch. Now, OxygenOS has Flux themes, which I definitely did talk about, and this is something that you can change on the lock screen and it does look very impressive. But it has a limited set of options. There are few clock styles, you cannot change the text, so it's kind of limited. Here, HyperOS definitely has a huge advantage, and technically if you look at it, Xiaomi's HyperOS was the first one. In fact, MIUI itself had this lock screen wallpaper that looked very impressive. So basically, the lock screen styles are divided into 3 categories. You get people, scenery, and Eastern aesthetic. And all these lock screen options are very unique and they provide a lot of customization options as well. For example, you can write custom text. You can even add extra information on some wallpapers like the wind direction, the humidity, the wind pressure, the sunrise, and the sunset information. You also do have more wallpaper effects. So once you set all of this up, it's a much richer experience. Now, in the global variant of the HyperOS 2.0 ROM, which we have it installed on the 14 Ultra, and the Indian variant, you do not get the AI lock screen wallpaper or even the live wallpaper option, which is a bit of a letdown. I hope that it comes in future updates. In fact, if you're talking about always on display styles, OxygenOS 15 does have a lot of styles, but HyperOS 2.0 has even more styles. Now, with respect to apps and changes in app design, there are two major app design changes that we notice in HyperOS 2.0. One is with settings and the other one is with photos. Now, in settings, what we notice is that just like OxygenOS 15, HyperOS has categorized all the settings. First, you've got about the device and system updater, then there's network settings, then there's home screen personalization, AI services, and so on and so forth. So you can see that network settings, home screen personalization, all of that are placed separately, and which is nice. And of course, there are more options. The gallery app in OxygenOS 15 is slightly more detailed and slightly easier to use. You have a bunch of extra pages, you've got better categorization. It just looks better. Now, one very interesting inclusion in OxygenOS 15 is the live alerts bit. Of course, it's something that Apple introduced first with the dynamic island and live activities. But I like the fact that OxygenOS actually took inspiration from there and made it better, because you can now have stacked live alerts on OxygenOS 15, which is not possible in iOS. I'm sure that Apple will do it at some point later, but right now I think OnePlus wins. HyperOS 2.0 doesn't have any of that. There are no live activities as such. There's this little pill that forms when you set a timer or something, but it's not properly animated with live activities as such. Now, with respect to interconnectivity options, which are very useful when you take a look at ecosystem, both of these do exceptionally well. Xiaomi's interconnectivity has options like call sync, network sync, and clipboard sync, which should definitely work really well with other Xiaomi devices. OxygenOS, of course, has something called OnePlus Synergy, which is their version of interconnectivity, and it definitely does work well across OnePlus devices. But generally, what I've noticed is that Xiaomi's interconnectivity is slightly more Apple-like in terms of implementation as opposed to OnePlus. OnePlus still has some way to go. Apart from that, you also get your usual Xiaomi stuff, which was there in HyperOS 1.0 as well, like Xiaomi Share, Quick Ball, and Second Space. There are more features in OxygenOS 15, though. For example, you've got Open Canvas, you've got the file dock as well. Then there's O+ Connect, which lets you connect to any other iPhone and transfer your files directly from an Android phone to an iPhone. Of course, Xiaomi can also do that, but for that you'll have to download an app separately, which basically is what OnePlus is also doing. Now, in OxygenOS 15, we know about all of the AI features that are already present. There are a bunch of AI-based editing tools that are there in the gallery app. You've got the AI eraser, you've got reflection eraser, you've got detail boost. All of these are pretty useful. But you've also got AI writing tools now, so which lets you format content, you can clean up content and polish it, all of that. HyperOS also has a bunch of AI features, including a new one called AI layout. So what this does is that it lets you format messy notes. So basically you can proofread, which basically helps you check spelling and grammar errors. And there's AI translate as well, which can even translate in Hindi. But these features don't work if you paste anything more than 5,000 characters, which is a bit of a limitation that we felt like it shouldn't have been there. OxygenOS doesn't have any sort of limitation like this. Now, you've got AI image expansion, which basically lets you expand an image, which is nice. And then you've got AI Eraser Pro, which is basically their version of a magic eraser. And when we tested it out against OnePlus's eraser, I think OnePlus does it better. But HyperOS 2.0 has this very interesting AI subtitles option. So we watched a little bit of JoJo's Part 3, and what the character says in Japanese, Xiaomi uses AI to actually subtitle it into English. Now, I don't know for a fact if the subtitling is happening absolutely perfectly, but it's helpful in a cinch. Galaxy AI has this AI interpreter. Even Xiaomi has one. And it works very well with Hindi, which is what we tried out. Now, Google specific AI features, like for example, Circuit to Search, both OxygenOS and HyperOS have it. With respect to AI features, there's a fair bit in HyperOS 2.0, but the OxygenOS 15 AI features feel a little more refined and better. Primarily because you don't have any sort of limit with respect to the amount of text you can translate, so there's no like a 5,000 word limit. Also, you don't have extra AI editing based features like, reflection eraser or the detail boost bit. And like I mentioned, the AI eraser bit doesn't work as well as OxygenOS. Now, HyperOS 2.0, after using it, it felt like a solid update, definitely, and Xiaomi fans are definitely going to be happy. But if you look at it, OxygenOS 15 is like a huge leap. It's definitely got way more features, much better animations compared to OxygenOS 14, so it feels a lot more refined and polished. Especially for somebody who's using like an older phone like the OnePlus 12, when they move from OxygenOS 14 to 15, they'll see a huge difference. And that, I think, is where OxygenOS 15 might feel like a better update than HyperOS, but HyperOS 2.0 actually did a lot of the things, like for example, the lock screen, wallpapers, and the theming and all of that much better in HyperOS 1.0 itself. So which one you prefer will boil down to your personal preference, but I must tell you this, HyperOS 2.0 is great on flagship phones, but I'm not so sure if it will be great on mid-range and budget phones. The same is true for OxygenOS 15, so we'll have to wait and watch for that. Also, more importantly, Xiaomi has been lagging behind in updates. That is something that I must highlight. Even the latest Xiaomi Redmi Note 14 Pro Plus comes with HyperOS 1.0 based on Android 14. So when you will get HyperOS 2.0 or OxygenOS 15 is something that you'll have to wait and watch, but I think OnePlus is doing better in terms of update. Alright, so that's it from me for this one. I hope you guys liked this video. I'll see you guys in the next one. Until then, keep tracking and stay safe.